Hello, everyone, and welcome to the College of Humanities and Fine Arts Alumni Panel Series made in HFA. Today we are hosting the final session of this series, and today's session is going to be themed Innovating with Mind and Machine. So we are going to be talking with some alumni about all of the ways that your degree from the Humanities and Fine Arts can prepare you for the modern career world, which is full of technology and innovation and computing, and how in the world we marry a humanities degree with the demands of the current field. We have three wonderful alumni with us today, so I'd like to go ahead and introduce them to you all. First up, we have Dwayne West. Dwayne graduated from Chico State in 2013 with a degree in philosophy and has been working in the tech industry ever since. He was recruited to work for Oracle as a software quality assurance analyst right out of school, due specifically to his performance in our Chico State philosophy program. Dwayne was with Oracle for over 6 years in a variety of different positions, but spent the bulk of his time building and optimizing the planning and development team for the cloud division. He has recently moved into a new position as program manager at Google in the Global Capacity Delivery Department of their cloud division. Dwayne is married with a 7-year-old daughter who was born just prior to his final semester at Chico State. In his spare time, he likes to read, teach himself new things, go for walks, and anything that equates to spending time with family. Hi, Dwayne. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello. Thanks a lot for having me.
Absolutely. Can you share with our audience where you're coming to us from today?
Yes, I am in the Bay Area, so I'm right outside of Oakland.
Perfect.
Near the Fremont area.
Awesome. Yep. Okay, our next panelist is Latoya Ali. She graduated from Chico State with a degree in religious studies in 2020. Latoya decided to return to college as a non-traditional student at the age of 30 to complete her dream of obtaining her bachelor's degree. Life circumstances had led Latoya to return to the workforce after completing her associate's degree in 2008. And so she was elated to find the perfect opportunity to complete her degree within 2 years through our religious studies online program. After experiencing a life-changing event in 2016, Latoya decided to move to the San Francisco Bay Area and venture into the tech industry. Current events related to social justice and equality have highlighted the need for diverse candidates in all roles within the tech industry. And in just 3 years of being in the industry, Latoya has worked her way up into a management role with hopes of curating a team that reflects members from every walk of life. Welcome, Latoya. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm assuming, as your introduction suggests, you are coming to us from the Bay Area today as well?
Yeah, the opposite direction of Dwayne. I'm actually north of Oakland in Antioch.
Very nice. Well, thank you again. And our last panelist today is Kevin Brose. Kevin graduated from Chico State in 2010 with a degree in music industry and technology with an option in recording arts and a minor in music. After graduating, Kevin moved to Los Angeles and has worked as a live sound engineer supporting some of the industry's largest artists and events. A gradual transition took him to the live event equipment rental market, and most recently working as a manufacturer rep for a few of the industry's top equipment manufacturers. Kevin currently works for Bay Area-based Clearcom, supporting critical real-time communications for military, aerospace, and government customers, including NASA, SpaceX, Lockheed Martin, and others. Hi, Kevin. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
And Kevin, would you share with everyone where you're streaming in from?
Yeah, I'm in Southern California, town of Burbank, so just north of Hollywood, near Warner Brothers and Universal Studios.
Very nice. Got some good fun spots close to you.
Pre-COVID, yes.
Pre-COVID, yes. All right, well, we have a few questions for you all. So we'll just kind of go round robin in the same order we introduced you. And then our audience members, if you have questions that come up during this conversation, you can feel free to put those in chat or just keep them until about the last 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll open the floor for kind of a broader conversation to happen. So I'd like to kick off my first question with Dwayne. Can you please share with us what sort of a standard workday in your current position looks like?
Yes, so I spend most of my days dealing with Google's suppliers, right? So my responsibilities are specifically making sure that Google has the equipment that it needs in its data centers. So I manage that. And in order to do that, I spend a lot of time with the suppliers. Other things that I tend to do throughout my day is also help build some of their tools to automate the processes that we have going on. And so that is another thing. And then I also manage their E&O. So I have, typically we tend to over forecast, overshoot our numbers, and Google or any company, Oracle as well, tends to stock up on their inventory, and we have to figure out a way to get rid of it. I'm also in charge of doing that. So.
Sounds like a busy day.
Yes, it is.
All right, Latoya, would you like to give us a glimpse at what your day typically looks like?
Yes, well, I'm in a bit of a transition. I'm actually on maternity leave. I just had my son in February, so I'm a full-time mom at the moment. But in my position that I have at Dropbox, I'm a senior API support engineer there on the team, specifically working on the HelloSign product. So if you have any e-signatures, you may have heard of DocuSign, but we're a competitor of them and we're HelloSign. So I help different engineers implement our product within their applications for e-signature. So I'm taking different types of questions in through email, sometimes phone calls, escalations, things of that nature, helping my team out in various ways with onboarding, training, and development, quality. I do a little bit of everything, but I am on the support team, but I am a customer-facing engineer.
Awesome, and congratulations.
Thank
That's a very exciting transition to be in, although I'm sure equally as exhausting as working full-time, right?
Yes.
If not
Yes.
more. All right, Kevin, can you share with us just a glimpse of what your day would be like?
I mean, you're looking at it right here. I've been doing remote sales for a while, and so COVID feels like a familiar space of Zoom meetings and Teams meetings, and I live in my Outlook inbox, but pre-COVID, it would be traveling around and visiting clients, doing site demos, technical demos. Now it's a lot of explanations, technical explanations and system designs, and quoting technical equipment for communications. So it's really, I work as a point of contact for any customers that are in our market trying to figure out comm solutions or communication solutions. Sometimes that's very technical, and sometimes it's as simple as just writing them a quote. But it's very much just interacting with clients and people and making sure that they have the information they need.
Perfect. And something I'm hearing from you all is that you are obviously, with the theme of this panel, in very technical related fields. And so I would love to hear from each of you how it is that you went from your undergraduate degree to the position you're in now. Was this like a really intentional path that you identified early on? Was it, did it happen more by happenstance, just the right opportunities appeared at the right time? And so we'll go ahead and kick off this question with Dwayne as well, but how did you find yourself in the position that you're in today? What led you there?
Oh my goodness. So while I was at Chico State, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I knew that, being in philosophy, I used to get that crazy question, right? Like, what do you want to do with your life? You're going to spend your time thinking deeply about unemployment, right? So that was the running joke within philosophy. But one of the things that a lot of people didn't understand was there's a component of philosophy that is very relevant, especially today in the tech industry, and that's logic, right? So philosophy is geared heavily in logic. And one of the professors there was basically going through the process and saying, hey, if you all do well here, we actually have a recruiter coming from Oracle. And if you can show your worth here, we will put your name in a hat so you can get an opportunity to interview there. And so I wound up getting the interview, then getting the job. And it was right away, the job was about coding, right? I didn't know anything about coding. The only thing I knew how to do was take my phone and open up Facebook. That was it. I didn't know anything about computers, nothing. And when I got to Oracle, one of the things that they said to me was, the reason why we recruit out of Chico State's philosophy department is because you all have that fundamental foundation about logic. And all we need to do is teach you the language, right, in coding. And so as I got to doing coding, I realized that that wasn't something that I wanted to do. It wasn't like I wasn't good at it, because again, it was fairly easy to pick up, but I noticed that I needed more interaction with people. When you're coding, you're pretty much wrapped into, you know, ideas all day and just trying to solve problems, and you're not really communicating with someone else. You're just trying to like build out your whole code, right? Or find bugs in other people's codes. And it wasn't fitting for me. And one day, vice president sent out an email saying that they were looking for a way to solve a problem in the business regarding intermittent demand. And I thought, what better way for me to really get and gain an understanding of Oracle's business than trying to be a part of this project? So in that sense, I would say that it was intentional that I started changing the direction on where I wanted to go, right? I jumped onto that project. The vice president loved the ideas that I presented, and he asked me to join his team. And I had been running ever since. I built myself up to, you know, understanding Oracle's business, trying to, you know, apply everything that I had been learning, you know, at that time. And I've been moving that way ever since, just really making it a point to put myself in a place where I can just see where the company is going, you know. And that was essentially what I wanted to do. I needed to be a part of something that was going to put me in contact with people. I love talking to people, but that was also going to give me an overall picture. And the role that I have now, it gives me that.
I'm glad to hear that you found yourself in something that really utilizes your skill set to their potential and also keeps you happy. And it sounds like you've done a wonderful job along the way of recognizing when opportunities are presenting themselves and really like jumping on those and putting yourself in a spot to succeed. So that's great to hear. Latoya, we'll go ahead and turn to you. How is it that you went from, you know, being in school and working to being in your most recent position in such a short period of time? What did that pathway look like for you?
Yeah, so it was something that I kind of stumbled across. As mentioned in my introduction, I graduated my associate's degree in 2008, and like the typical millennial, I just was working and trying to figure out like what felt like meaningful to me in different jobs, but it wasn't very financially stable, as you can imagine. So I was having a conversation with someone one day about how I would love to move to San Francisco Bay Area. And then as things would happen, I came across a random advertisement for my boot camp that was centered around coding. So when I graduated from my boot camp, I was able to move to the Bay Area, and I married what I did before with customer support with these new skills that I learned in tech, and I was able to get my first job in the industry. But again, I still felt like, okay, I have my financial freedom now, my financial independence, I'm good with that, but I still want to do something that means a lot to me. And so going back to school for religious studies allowed me to kind of like fulfill that as well while working full time. So I was in tech, getting the money that I needed to make to survive and to still fulfill it as an adult in my 30s at that time. And I wanted to just complete my degree because I had started that in 2008. So the financial freedom allowed me to do that. So tech was really like a sponsor for me to fulfill that really important dream of completing my bachelor's.
That's great. I'm really glad that you found our program and were able to leverage that environmental flexibility to get that done while working as well. That's wonderful. Yeah. Kevin, we'll turn to you. Can you share with us how in the world you found yourself down in Burbank?
Yeah, in college, I inquired about a internship program that an ex-student of Chico State would pull current students from and bring them out on tour on a international music festival. And I thought that would be really fun and must have made a good impression on one of my professors because he recommended me for it. And so that kind of set my path on going into live sound and live events. And from there, I've really just kind of jumped around from different positions. I think the key thing for me on these opportunities that come my way is just trying to make other people's lives easier, whether it's my bosses, coworkers, or clients. It all comes down to just making their days, their jobs, making them successful. And through that path, I've gotten job offers in the broadcast and live event space. And then led into opportunities in working for equipment manufacturers, representing equipment manufacturers to where I'm at now. And it's pretty much just been a process of, yeah, I mean, trying to just make things easier for people. I guess with my degree, you know, everyone focuses on the audio side, but it's really been kind of the people and the interaction side of things that's really opened the doors and set me on my path to where I'm at now. And now I'm very customer facing, where all day I'm just trying to make a client's job easier, whether it's earlier today, I was talking to an engineer at NASA who's making a gas mask mic and trying to interface that with an intercom panel. And so I'm coordinating our efforts to support him on technical design and information for that. It's just about making people's days easier, and where I've gotten.
That is quite an impressive conversation to have just had earlier today. What I'm hearing in sort of a common theme from all of you is I think we have this misperception that if you're working in a technical field, whether it's like audio or coding or whatnot, that you don't interact with people that much, that you're not a people person. But I'm hearing the opposite from all of you. I'm hearing a lot of human connection, from Dwayne saying he wants to work with people, to you saying making lives easier, Latoya talking about like sort of this customer facing skill set. It sounds like those are key components of all of your careers so far. And our next question is gonna kind of work off of that. So I'd love to hear, in each of your opinions, how did your undergraduate degree program prepare you or improve your skills in your current job? And more specifically, are there certain skills or certain pieces of knowledge that you learned at Chico State that you feel like are, you know, applicable to your everyday work? And Dwayne, we'll go ahead and start with you on that.
Yes. Absolutely. So let me first start out. So I touched on the logic part, right, in the beginning, and I think that was the catalyst to get me going. But one of the things that I didn't realize until I got into the business, into the tech industry, was that there was something about philosophy that was unique. And I'm kind of like I'm looking on it and providing meaning to it now, but what I feel what was happening was that every class that I went to, you always had some specific philosopher giving this huge argument for some central idea. And all of your professors were taking that idea and then they were breaking down the argument, right? And it wasn't this whole book. They took pieces of the arguments and put them together so that you didn't have to go through a long text of Aristotle or Hegel or any of them, right? If you were just sitting there and you wanted to know a little bit about Nietzsche and what his arguments were, the professors would break that information down for you. What I didn't realize until later was that they were actually like helping us realize that you need to focus on central things. And you'll find that out in any career, right? There are central things to what you're going to be doing. And the coolest thing about philosophy was not only did it give me the logic background so that I can actually help and make it applicable to what I do, but also it actually helped me realize that everything that I did, I could just break it down to little bitty components and solve those problems at a small level, right? And then make them applicable overall. And so one of the things that I would say is, when you're going through school, when you're going through your education, just realize, like, take your cues from your professors, understand what they're doing, right? Like, there are classes where you won't go into and read a whole text to get the central idea of something, right? Take that same thought process throughout your whole life. Find out the central pieces of information that you need, break it down into its logical components, and then make it applicable to all the things that you're doing. And that's the most fundamental thing that I've gained from philosophy, was that logic and breaking things down in small sections so that I can, you know, take to digest it, if you will. I think that's important.
That is, I feel like, incredibly applicable to so many different areas. And I'm thinking as small as like creating a succinct email, but as large as solving like a larger corporate problem, right? Like that seems overwhelming when you look at it up front, but that ability to break down into smaller pieces makes everything a bit more manageable, and requires like quite a bit of critical thinking to be able to do that. So I'm so glad to hear that you got that from our programs here.
Yes.
Latoya, do you have any particular skills or pieces of knowledge in mind that you feel like came from your experience in the religious studies program that are still helping you today?
Yeah, I would definitely say skills. And I just want everyone to know that group projects do not stop in college. You still have to collaborate and learn to work with other people. So definitely teamwork, collaboration, working with people with diverse backgrounds, researching topics, finding credible sources, all of that, and keeping an open mind still happens after you close your textbook and graduate. So as a religious studies major also, it was a strictly online program, and people would say like, oh, you're in school, but online, and kind of like say to themselves like it's easy, and it wasn't. I had the same standards as in-person students. And so for me, pre-COVID, I learned great work ethic on how to work from home in a team environment and collaborate. So for me, post-COVID, I was kind of like ahead of the game with that because I was already virtual first, as you can say, with like working on different projects and things of that nature. So for me, it was definitely those skills of collaboration and teamwork that I was able to kind of polish up on as well in a classroom setting.
Sounds like those skills probably made you, amongst other things, an asset to any work team that you were on. I imagine when your colleagues are maybe struggling a bit more with this transition, you're kind of smooth sailing and helping everyone find their groove.
Yeah, knowing how to like regulate emails and meetings and Zoom, like I was already comfortable with those things.
You're definitely a step ahead of the game there. That's wonderful. Kevin, do you have any thoughts on skills or bits of knowledge that you gained from the music program?
Yeah, for me, the key thing has been signal flow. That's signal flow just being, how do you get signal from, say, a person's voice or an instrument or a microphone through all the different patch points and cables and gadgets and gizmos and audio consoles and speakers, just kind of, it's almost like audio plumbing is how I would consider it. So how do you get all these different signals around that you are using? And it's something they really hammer in your head of like, learn signal flow. And the students are like, that's boring. It's not cool. It's not, it's not like, it's not the fun part of what we do, but it's so key in everything that an audio technician, whether you're live sound, studio, or in my instance, as a comms, what I would call a comms guy, it's so key to have that basic understanding because it helps you troubleshoot. And if you can't troubleshoot, you're kind of just in any live environment or a recording situation, you're kind of worthless. If you walk on a stage and you plug a microphone in, it's not working, and you've got Paul McCartney, who would used to come to my rehearsal studio, staying there looking at you like, why is this not working? Why can't I hear myself? You're no good. You got to be able to quickly address those issues, and troubleshooting or signal flow is key to that. And even today, as a technical salesperson, I use signal flow and my knowledge of it to do designs and diagrams and drawings and put together these systems that I'm selling. And it's just the most basic component of being an audio engineer and audio tech. It's not flashy, it's not fun, but it's just the key component of succeeding at this, whatever sort of technical thing you do. And that could be the same for lighting guys. I could see that as very much the same, and probably many of our other degrees of just kind of that basic fundamental that they will teach you in college. Make sure you have that down. We had access to super fancy, expensive microphones and consoles and all this gear that you might not ever see again. But if you don't have the basics down, you're just not going to be very useful in the real world. So take this time to really understand that and get a solid foundation, because you'll have a step up from anyone else that's getting into the field of, who's fresh and new and doesn't have a long resume. If you understand signal flow, you'll be a lot more useful than they will be.
Awesome. And that's something that I think we talk to students about quite frequently, that it's the basic skills that you're learning that maybe aren't the fun part that really transfer to so many different areas and give you the flexibility to expand your career or change direction within your career. But if you don't have mastery of those, it's going to be hard to make those transitions. And it's just interesting to hear that echoed through so many different channels when we tell our students that all the time, and to hear that confirmed by professionals in the fields, I think is really valuable. So our next question is, if you were to be in a position to hire a Chico State graduate, what skills or attributes would you look for in somebody that you would interview? And Dwayne will go ahead and allow you to kick that one off.
Right. So there at Oracle, I was responsible for interviewing all of our incoming people. And so there, I used to ask some specific questions. And one was my favorite question. And I would ask this question, not because I wanted them to get the right answer, it's because I wanted to see their problem solving skills. Because right now in the tech industry, we're going through this huge transformation. Everything is about, automation. And so the people that needed to come on our team, I felt that they needed the ability to be able to critically analyze things, but come up with ways to solve problems. And there's an interview question I used to give them, and I used to say to them, I need you to sum up the numbers from 1 to 50. Okay, it's 1, 2, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, on and on, and give me the answer. But I don't want you to write it all out and sum them all up. I want you to figure out an algorithm, if you will, and tell me what the answer is. And again, I wasn't looking for the right answer. And no matter how many people came across my desk and were trying to solve that, you see them working really hard. People that had received their degrees from Yale and their MBA from Stanford, they were all struggling with this question. But there was one person that I loved the way in which he attacked the problem, because it was exactly what I was looking for. He didn't get the answer right. One is he kept working at it. He was really frustrated, like trying to figure out what it is to do it. And that's one of the things I'm looking for. I'm looking for, like, do you just give up easy? Like, if you can show me that you can do that, that you don't give up easy, I'm really excited. But the most critical thing that I'm looking for is, and I talked on it earlier, to solve that equation, can you go in and figure out what it means to, like, sum up 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, and maybe you can figure out the logic in that instead of trying to tackle this big issue, right? And he was the only one that focused heavily on 1 to 6, right? He broke it down into 1 to 6, and that's all I was looking for. He was frustrated that he couldn't give me the answer, but we ran out of time. But that's the type of stuff that I'm looking for when I'm going in. So show that you're able to look at things and break them down in a smaller area, so that I can see that at least you're going to try to work it out instead of trying to tackle a big issue. That's very, very difficult. And that was brought up earlier. You're going to need a team to be able to do stuff like that. But the critical point is, will you figure out, let me focus on this small area and perfect it and figure out what I can do with this, right? And go on, right? And so those are the type of things that I looked for. It was fun. People were always nervous during those interviews. But again, I kept telling them, it's not the answer. And whatever you do, especially if you all decide to go into the tech industry, when you're given questions like that, they're not looking for the answer. They want to see, what type of assumptions are you making? Will you break the problem down in small parts, or are you the type of person that think you can tackle this big issue, right? And will you be persistent? And so that's what I would tell you.
That sounds like an interview that would have made me incredibly nervous, but that's such a unique way to have candidates approach it. And I absolutely love, like, your usage of that kind of problem to see how are they going to approach the work that they do. And honestly, like, is that not what our math professors taught us? Like, don't just give me an answer, show me how you got to the answer. What methods did you use? So students, again, pay attention to what your instructors are teaching you. Okay, Latoya, if you were in a position to hire a Chico State grad, what would you look for?
Yeah, definitely someone with an inquisitive mind. I think that asking questions is very important. So depending on the questions that you ask, I can figure out a lot about you and how you resolve issues. and how you also work together with others. So if you ask me a question that I don't know the answer to, you're letting me know my gaps. And so I'm like, oh, this person is able to see the bigger picture. And it makes me curious too to see more about like, well, what is your thought process and why did you ask that question? So again, great for teamwork and collaboration. Also, when you ask me a question that I know the answer to, I'm able to engage with you, tell you my thought process, and also see how you engage with me again, seeing how we're going to work together to resolve whatever issues that we're working on together. And then also asking questions in general allows us to know that you're not a person to make assumptions and take the lead. Because although we're looking for a leader and someone to kind of work independently, I also want to make sure that you are thinking about the team and knowing what direction we're going into. Because just like that problem solving question that Dwayne was talking about, you can go down a rabbit hole, but asking the interviewer a lot of questions will allow you to figure out exactly what they are looking for in general. So I think just someone with an inquisitive mind is something that I definitely would look for.
I'm going to apologize for the barking dogs in the background if you can hear them, and we'll go ahead and jump to Kevin if you'd like to share with us what you would look for in a candidate.
Yeah, if I was looking at a Chico State recent grad for hire, I would call their professors and ask them if they recommend them. I think that, you know, a new hire, I'm not expecting them to have a resume, a lot of work experience, a ton of references, but I would absolutely check with their professors or any mutual contacts that I knew and just see is, you know, what are your thoughts on this person? What's their work ethic like? And I think that's kind of one of the things Dwayne was getting at is what's their work ethic? Are they gonna try to figure stuff out? Are they gonna give up? How are they gonna act under pressure? I think, you know, asking your teachers, how do these students manage pressures of college? Is the kind of thing I would look at for, you know, a college grad. Is that recommendation? If you can get a letter of recommendation from your professors, that would mean a lot to me hiring someone fresh out of college. And you should try to be working in your industry while you're in college. Can you get a reference from any of your, you know, colleagues at work or your bosses at work that, you know, that you were doing while you were a student? Those are key. Those recommendations to me mean a lot and would be something I would be looking for from a college, recent college grad. Certainly like Dwayne's answer of putting the pressure on. I think that it's key to kind of see how people react in a stressful situation. But I would like to actually, you know, I would probably check with the professors and see what their thoughts were and if they have recommendations there.
Yeah, and I think that absolutely speaks to the importance of building connections and building relationships and mentoring relationships with your instructors when you're in school. And it's something that, you know, is constantly encouraged and unfortunately I don't think not done enough by students, because whether you're going to graduate school or going to professional position, these are the people who know the most about the work that you've done. And it's incredibly important to build those relationships. All right, so what might be our final formal question, since it looks like we're coming up on kind of some audience time here, is how do you keep yourself learning and growing professionally to stay one step ahead of changes in your industry? And Dwayne, if you'd like to speak to that first, that'd be great.
Yep, thank you. So I attend a lot of conferences to figure out what's changing in our industry, especially Gartner conferences. I also, within our company, right, we have a lot of, especially at Google, we have a lot of people that come in and give us lectures on what's changing in the industry. You always want to attend stuff like that. It's very important, especially being like when you're hearing things like 5G, where, you know, AI, right? Where ML, where are these things going, right? So when people are talking about machine learning, right, that will help me gain an understanding of what type of skills I'm gonna need. So the moment I'm hearing about 5G, I wanna know what 5G is doing, right? So when I find out that 5G is we're gonna be able to handle lots of data, we're gonna have to do edge computing, right? Because we're gonna have a lot of autonomous vehicles on the roads, right? And these autonomous vehicles going to have to be able to handle a lot of data, right? And so there are a lot of data that's going to be flowing into these data centers. Now, for me, I need to figure out, okay, where do I need to be, right? If this is happening, what skills do I need to be able to keep up with stuff like that, right? And so now I want to get in, I want to learn how to do SQL, right? Because SQL is going to be handling this data, right? Like you start putting things together when you're attending conferences. And I think that's what's going to be important. And also working with upper management, understanding the direction of your organization, figuring out where you all will be in the next year, in the next 3 years, right, will help you do that. And just making sure that they're sending you to the appropriate conferences so that you can, increase your knowledge base. That'll help you stay ahead of everybody. That's what I would say.
Perfect. And if I could ask, the conferences that you're attending, are they more tied to like professional organizations within your field, or are they more hosted by individual companies?
They're hosted by individual companies.
Okay. And were those conferences that you were aware of when you were a student, or was it knowledge that you sort of came across after you entered the field?
After I entered the field.
Okay. Are there certain things you would tell students to start looking for those learning opportunities now, or do you feel like that is an experience that's best suited for maybe an early professional?
So that's a great question. It would be nice if you can jump on things right now, but I would say it would be a lot of noise to you. You wouldn't have any, well, we're smart, right? You're smart, you can figure things out, but I will say that the smartest can get lost and run down a rabbit hole, right? And I'm all for getting into areas and being specialized. It's what's gonna make you stand out against other people. And in order to do that, I mean, you're looking at a guy who graduated with a degree in philosophy, and I became a software developer, and then they trained me to be an industrial engineer, right? That's not my background, right? But I didn't learn that until I got into the profession. And I think that, as long as you're willing to learn when you get there, because your company is going to teach you, they're going to do that stuff for you, right? It wasn't like I had to go in and say, I need to be an industrial engineer, so I'm going to study it in college. No, they're like, the stuff that you learned in college, that isn't applicable right now, right? They're already behind. So we're going to teach you. And so it was good that I was basically coming in with a, like just a blank canvas, right? And they could mold me how they wanted to. And so that's what I would say. I would say, if you can go and get the information now, do it, but you would be going in so many directions you don't know. When you get into the industry, you will know, because basically your profession will point you in the directions.
That's really great insight. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yep.
Latoya, what kind of practices are you engaging in to keep yourself like learning, growing, and one step ahead of these changes?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with Dwayne that whenever I was leaving my boot camp, it was in March of 2018. And I felt like I was a part of March Madness because I was attending every single event possible, just trying to get a job. And I was extremely overwhelmed with that. But what I did learn within that is community. So for me, it wasn't about just a specific company hosting an event. It was about groups within the tech industry that I could relate to. So like women in tech, tech ladies, Black in tech, Afro tech, just different minority groups within tech that could give me a community. So that it was like keep my ears to the ground, see what other people were working on, have people help to hold me accountable, people that I can work on different projects with as well. Because a lot of times in interviews, people are asking you outside of just your day job, what is your passion project? What are you working on? So I think that's something that's very important too. Outside of just community and events, it's also working on passion projects outside of your day job within that industry as well, to just show people that you are looking for the new innovative things and you're aware of what's happening, even if you aren't directly involved with that within your day-to-day.
Perfect. And those organizations that you mentioned, how did you gain awareness of those? Was it something you stumbled across? Did like a colleague or a peer introduce you to those?
Actually, I'm active on LinkedIn, so I came across a lot of communities there. Just like by adding people within my network, I saw what they were attending, and I was like, "Oh, that looks interesting to me as well." Also within those organizations, I would volunteer for some of their events as well to like get access to the conferences and stuff, and to also build those relationships. So word of mouth and LinkedIn definitely helped a lot.
Perfect. And we're definitely encouraging our students to get on LinkedIn. And I think this just, reiterates the value that platform can bring. Kevin, what kind of things are you doing these days to keep yourself learning and growing?
Yeah, with my industry being rather technical, there's always new standards and technologies that are kind of becoming the basis of our industry. So staying on top of those, understanding how they work, how they're different, and kind of a broad spectrum is very important. So, for any audio people, I'm talking about AS67, SMPTE 2110, even something like Dante, staying on top of what these technical standards are or quasi standards are and how they're being used. I would not suggest focusing so hard on specific products. And I saw that often where people get really, new flashy thing comes out and they're like, oh, I know all about this new speaker or this new microphone. It's like, you may or may not run into that. Just understand the technologies underlying that and the basis of how that equipment's being used. And, that's been kind of key on to stay ahead of the game and understanding technology. And my suggestion there for people in that sort of technical field is pay attention to the manufacturers that are kind of top of their game, because they are constantly doing free webinars to teach you how to use this equipment, understand these technologies. I mean, me as a manufacturer, I want as many people out there to understand what the underlying technologies that I'm using and our equipment uses, because it just makes them more valuable users, makes my life easier. And I think we all share that out there and try to get that information out there. So, I mean, COVID's really accelerated this. The whole industry has been doing webinars and free trainings. I would say take advantage of that. And if there's something specific you're interested in, you want to learn, reach out to them. If it's a manufacturer kind of thing, reach out to them and ask them, hey, what's going on here? How's this work? Or how can I learn more about this? People absolutely share that information. So don't hesitate to ask for, direction from people that are creating these products and these things. But yeah, LinkedIn, like Latoya mentioned, definitely, pay attention on there. It's, you'll just find a lot of news and information. There's lots of trade groups that will be, putting out information about what's happening in the market or the industry, what's new, who's seeing who. Pay attention to that stuff just to get a broad understanding of what's going on with the direction you want to go with your career.
I think what I've heard echoed from all of you is as Latoya phrased it, keep your ear to the ground through whatever method it may be, whether it's conferences or groups or news releases. It's just be aware of what is happening in your field, stay on top of current changes and events, and as needed, pick up new skills based on what you're hearing there. Thank you. I think that's going to be incredibly valuable for our students. So we've kind of come to the close of these structured questions. And so at this point, I'd really like to open it to our audience members. If you have any questions for our panelists, any comments, would invite you now to either unmute your microphone and go ahead and ask, or feel free to utilize our chat function to ask some questions as well.
I don't have a question. I do have another meeting that I have to hop on to, but I just want to say this is a really great panel. You guys just were fantastic and really helped open my mind, because I have a lot of these interests as well. I've always said that humanities degrees are much more usable than people realize. So I appreciate the way that you guys are showing that it's not so much the specifics that you learn, but the broad ways of thinking, problem solving skills, communication skills. Like I like when Dwayne pointed out that, in fact, even if you take a technical degree, by the time you graduate, the actual industry leaders are already past that. I mean, they don't use, like in programming, you learn C or whatever that is. And I mean, people don't use that anymore. They use other programming languages that you haven't learned yet. So in a sense, it might even be better that you don't come in with specific knowledge, but you have a broad. So I really appreciated that. I'm glad this is recorded. I will certainly recommend people to watch it, but I do have to get going. So thanks a lot, everybody. And great to see you, Latoya. Good to see that you're doing well, and congratulations on your child as well. Okay, take care.
Thanks, Daniel.
I just want to apologize for coming in late. I was at another session, so I didn't get to catch the introductions and everything, but I surmised that I think Dwayne is a philosophy alum. working now, doing engineering work by training or trade here. Latoya, I know that you are in the online religious studies program, because I think I watched your presentation last year at the senior seminar. But I'm not sure what you're doing now.
Yeah. So a quick spiel, I just had my son in February, so I'm on maternity leave. And my previous position was at Dropbox as a senior API support engineer. And I'll actually be starting a new role in May, May 17th, as an engineering manager.
Oh, nice. Congratulations as well.
Thank you.
And thank you. And Kevin, I wasn't able to surmise what your major was.
Music industry and technology with an option in audio recording.
Okay, pretty cool. So I don't have any questions for you all right now, but I do appreciate your sharing your time and your talents with us. And what I've heard is, I think is really great, because, you know, one of the things we've been trying to do is really sort of push out the narrative about the importance of the arts and humanities. And often, even with our colleagues on campus, there is a lot of misperceptions about, right, the people in arts and humanities and their ability to grasp or to work with or to even be confident with technical issues. And so that's something we're always pushing back, like, what do you mean? And so I appreciate hearing you talk about the ways in which you have a kind of flexibility because of your training and preparation in the arts and humanities, that I don't know that a lot of our colleagues in those technical fields have the same kind of flexibility on the other way if we needed them to access things. So I just wanted to say thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tracy. Any other questions or comments coming from our audience members?
Well, can I ask one question? So now that you're out, is there something that we can be doing better as a college to help prepare our students in this way?
I'll step in on this one. So there are a few things that I'm not sure if it's going on at Chico, and if it was during my time, I wish that someone were like actually advocating for it. And it's this: teaching people how to interview, basically walking them through the whole process, even to the point of helping them solve like problems that could come up within an interview, right? One of the things that I realized, whether it was the interview questions that you get at Google or the interview questions that I received at Oracle, they were very difficult, right? And I wish that I actually had somewhere to practice. Okay. And so if Chico State actually has that program, please let people know about it and really try to get them going on stuff like that. Get engineers in to talk to them about potential interview questions that they can come across. And then just, again, help them building out their resumes and stuff like that. And again, I didn't know if that was available to me when I was there. It would have been really helpful. But I would say that.
Okay. And Dwayne, can I ask, when were you here?
I actually graduated in 2013.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I can speak on that a little bit, if you don't mind. One thing I think that would be really beneficial would be doing more interdepartment collaborations. So one thing I was very fortunate with some of my classes was working with other groups and other students, like doing audio recording projects for our student-run record label. But thinking about, nowadays, I don't know if Chico has like a video game department or something that, somewhere that you could use audio assets and use, some of the things that we were training for and things that would be very applicable to our skills. I think having some interaction with completely different departments that kind of in a real world situation, you would be doing that. You would be interacting with people from, different groups in a company. I think it would be really helpful to see that sort of interaction and go through that experience, because you start talking about things, you might be talking to a group of people and they use different language for describing the same thing that you do. So broadening your vocabulary to discuss and talk about different things, that just getting outside of your bubble a little bit and interacting with people, I think that would be beneficial for students going forward.
Thanks.
So we do have a question that just came up in the chat, and it's asking for recommendations on resume sites or sources. This individual graduated with a humanities degree in 2015 and has worked at the same company since about 2014. Is a supervisor, but since they've only had one job, they want to branch out and explore other jobs in the future and kind of diversify out of their field of experience. And so I'll have any of you who'd like to speak on that, go ahead, and then maybe Bettina can jump in on this one as well.
Yeah, in terms of resume, like outlines, I love using resume.io. It has a super awesome UI. So that's what I recommend. If you're looking to get into the tech industry, there's actually this awesome organization called Breakline, and they work with women and minorities as well as veterans to get into the tech industry. So if that's some type of category that you fall into, I do recommend Breakline. So resume.io for your general layout, and then Breakline to get into the tech industry.
Yeah, I'll touch just on this just a little bit. So I'm actually a career advisor in our career center at Chico State. I didn't know the career center existed when I was an undergrad at Chico State, so I totally hear where you're coming from, Dwayne. We actually do provide services such as working with individuals on their resume, doing practice interviews, we have workshops, and I mean, and so much more, right? Whatever that career path is for you, if you're going into graduate school, like we'll have that conversation with you, we'll work on the things that you're needing for those steps. And the other unique thing about Chico State is we continue to offer these career services for alumni for free for life, right? So for individuals such as the individual with that question, you can come and see us. I would be your career liaison for the humanities and fine arts, and you could come and see me and we can have that conversation and how can you adjust your resume for that change of industry, and just talking about the current trends. And it's free, right? Like you're not missing out. So that's just a service that Chico State offers. And like I said, we really work on, we meet you with where you're at in your career planning, right? And we answer the questions that you have at that time, and then we can meet with you as often as you need to kind of get to that next step. So that is something that we do offer at Chico State.
And again, kind of building off of Dwayne's comments, I also did not know that the Career Center really existed when I was an undergraduate. And so this panel is part of an effort from Bettina and myself to make this more apparent to our students, to get those resources out there so that, you know, they know what's available to them, and we're putting professionals out into the field who are as prepared as they can possibly be. So I definitely appreciate hearing that, like, that was not your experience, because it does highlight the need for that to be the experience of future generations. Well, we are coming to the end of our time together, but I would just like to extend one more thank you to our alumni participants. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate having you here with us today. This is incredibly valuable. For anyone watching, we're going to have a recording available here in just a few days, and so you are more than welcome to rewatch if there's any pieces that you want to revisit, or maybe watch some of our panel events that happened earlier in the series. So thank you everyone so much. It was a joy to spend this hour with you, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.